Hello animators and artists, and welcome to today's webinar, Let's Get Creative with Harmony 17. My name is Mike, and this is an interactive webinar, which means that we'll be answering your questions live. To give us a little bit of context for any questions that might crop up, feel free to type in and tell us about how much experience you have with animation, as well as previous versions of Toon Boom Harmony. We'll be joined today by Marie-Ève Chartrand, Toon Boom's Director of Customer Success. Marie-Ève will be covering new features in Harmony 17, which allow users to create artwork, animate, add special effects and sound, composite, and do final production all using the same tool. Take it away, Marie-Ève.
Thank you very much. And so I'm actually very excited to be doing this webinar today. And can everybody see my screen? I want to make sure that we can see my screen. Yes, okay, perfect. So I will now get into Harmony 17 and show you some of the new features that were added very recently. And actually, I'm quite excited to be doing this webinar today because not only was I behind the scene when we developed a lot of these new features, but I got to use them a lot on projects recently, and it's just really has been such a blast to use them and made my life a lot easier. So actually, I was really excited to share that with you today. And so I'm going to start by showing you some of the new improvements that we did for the drawing tools, because the drawing tools are so important in Harmony, since you can, it's drawing all your drawings with those. So the improvements that we've done have been very useful for me when I'm trying to draw and clean up drawings. So a couple things that we've done is that when I use my drawing tools to start cleaning drawings, I actually have a bit of a shaky hand. And in the past, if you wanted to smooth out your lines as you draw to remove some of the shake, you would have to adjust the smoothing. It's something you need to use so much anymore. So for example, it was the central smoothing that I would increase. And so if I would draw my lines, it would remove some of the shake. The problem with that is that when you draw your line, it would change the line after you're done drawing it. And for an artist, that can be fairly frustrating, because when you're drawing your lines, you want to make sure that you see your final line as you draw it, because then if you remove your pen and then it moves it after you're done, it makes it difficult to gauge what your final drawing will look like. So now, instead of using the smoothing, which is an operation after the fact, we have what we call now the drawing stabilization. So it's actually a new toolbar that you will find in your Windows. And then if you go to toolbars, you'll find the new pen settings toolbar. You can also call it directly in your camera view. You can right click in this area and just get your pen settings here. And then in the pen settings, you get a lot of new options, one of them being the stabilizer. So by default, it's off. But if you go in it, the first option you have there is called the average. And so the average allows me to make, actually it's called, like it says, it is the average of my line. So if I shake my line, my hand as I draw, it will get the average of all the points that I'm drawing and make a smooth line. So I will put my options really, really high. And then if I shake my pen, as you can see, it will really make a smooth line regardless of how shaky I am. And that makes it so useful when I want to clean up my drawing. So for example, if I want to do this line there, I'm going to be able to do a really nice smooth line. Let me put it back around 20, because obviously 100 is really, really strong. It's not a setting I would really use in production. But if I go around 24, then it's going to be a lot smoother of line. And it's really nice to use. And it's a bit hard to demo it because it's more of a feeling. So if you get a chance to download the trial and enable this average and play with it, you're going to get a super nice feel when cleaning your drawings. Now, obviously, if I'm doing an average and kind of round up my lines, if I'd like to do sharp corner, then it's not as easy because it rounds off my corner. So the other option that you're going to have is the pulled string. And so the pulled string is actually how it's called. I'm actually going to pull a string as I draw. So if I do my line here, I will, you can see I have that little string, and as I pull on it, I find it fantastic to clean up with. At first, it is a bit counterintuitive, but then once you get used to it, it takes like 10 seconds. It just is fantastic. And then that allows me to do these sharp corners. So for example, I can clean up the ears on my dog there, and then just go and do this little sharp corner and all. That I'm actually not super good at cleanup, so that really helped me a lot to do really clean drawing. So actually, I really recommend that you download it and you try it, because it's really fantastic. And then the other thing that I found was really good is, especially people who are passing from paper to digital, when they get into drawing on a Wacom, they're not used to the fact that as soon as they touch the canvas, it's gonna start drawing. And what they rather do instead is just, you want to position your pen and see, okay, I want to draw my line here, and then start drawing by pressing. But so that allows me here, when this curve setting here allows me to adjust my pressure field, so that I need to actually put 25% of pressure before it starts drawing. So for example, here I can kind of position my pen, and then I start drawing. So it's even nicer if I use a textured brush. So instead of using a solid vector, I'm going to use a textured brush here. So then when I start drawing my line, I can slowly press it, and then I'm going to adjust the pressure for my pen. And that has improved a lot the quality of my line when I do cleanup, or when I go from paper to digital. So again, it's a feeling thing. So download it and try it. And so here you can adjust how much pressure you want to put before it starts drawing, and then you can adjust the strength of the pressure you have to do before it gets thicker and thinner again. So you can really control all the pressure for your pen, and I really tell this is a fantastic feature. So again, it's in the pen stabilizer toolbar, and you need to enable that toolbar to have access to these features. The other thing that we did to improve the drawing tools were, if you now go in your settings for your vector brush or pencil or the bitmap brushes, you have now the ability to use the pen rotation or the pen tilt sensitivity. So the pen tilt sensitivity is when you're on your Wacom and you will move your pen left or right, angle your pen left or right or up, down. And actually the best way to show that is if I go in my preferences, I will, in my drawing tool, I can show my brush size cursor. This is a preference that is already there in the software, but now if I show that brush size cursor and I use a diamond shaped tip, and when I increase the pen tilt, you're going to be able to see that the tilt is supported in that tip. So as I draw and rotate my tip, you will be able to see, you will be able to feel that angle of your pen. So you're getting a lot closer to all the feelings that you have when you're drawing on paper. And so beside that, if you have also the Wacom Art Pen, you're going to be able to use the settings, the pen rotation. So the Art Pen is the one that has a very thick tip. So not all the Wacom pens have that. But when you have that settings, you're going to be able to use the pen tip. And then if you rotate your pen, it will also rotate along with it. So not just the angle, but the rotation. This is just for a few Wacom pen. And beside that, we also added additional brush tips. And this is for both bitmap brushes and textured vector brushes. So you're going to be able to find additional lead, for example, a few more brush tips like lead paint, not lead paint, lead tip. And so you're going to be able to see these presets here, and you're going to be able to also see additional settings in there. So there's a lot of additional settings that will really allow you to draw a lot more organically, similar to paper. So I was really excited when we released that, because that's been something that people have been asking. We've been listening to you, see how you would like to have these new settings, and we implemented that. And I think everybody will be enjoying these new features quite a bit. But beyond just improving the drawing tools themselves, which actually will work on vector and bitmap tools and pen tools, so the stabilizer settings and all that are all available for all our drawing tools. So whichever method you prefer to use, you're going to be able to work with that. And then, so now, beside the drawing tools, what I'm going to show you, let me take out this document, and we're going to be talking about the drawing guides. So the drawing guides have been there for a few versions. And you saw in a few past versions, we had the 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, and 3-point perspective. But now in Harmony 17, we really went full out, and we added a lot more different guides. The first one is a super simple one, and it's really convenient. So, for example, here I have what we call the ruler. Let me just get a regular brush. That's going to be a bit easier. And so the ruler is just straight up like having a ruler. Some people would put an actual plastic ruler on their Wacom to be able to draw straight lines. But now you have the ability to just move that around, rotate it around, and just draw a straight line. So that was the first guide that we added, a very simple ruler. And then after that, we added additional ones, a very useful one if you're doing gaming. We're looking at the isometric perspective. So the isometric perspective is an infinite perspective guide. So if I show the grids, you're going to be able to see that we have this isometric perspective where I'm going to be able to draw these different lines like this and draw that infinite perspective. This is really useful if you're doing 2D gamings and draw backgrounds that need to be infinite scroll but have a perspective. So that has been a really useful one that we added, and I was really excited about that. You're going to be able to also adjust the angle of that perspective. And so you can also hold down the Option key to control the angle, the rotation, all that. So you can adjust all of the settings that you want in your grid there. And after the isometric perspective, the other one that we added was the 3-point perspective horizontal pan. So what that is that your pan, instead of being the straight lines, it allows you to have these curved lines. And so you can always use rulers and all that to have, when you work on paper, to create your perspective and have to have straight lines. But having a guide that allow you to do curved lines is really, really fantastic and useful. So if you want to do your very quick left to right pan, and you're going to be you need your curved your background to be curved, then you can use the 3-point perspective horizontal pan. But we also have it as a vertical pan. And beyond that, we also have it with the 4-point perspective, for example, vertical pan as well. And I want to show you an example of a completed background there. I'm going to start drawing one right in front of you. So from the library here, let me just import a guide background. And so on this background here, let me show you what we did with this one. And so let's take out the fisheye for now. And so on this one, we have a vertical pan that was used created with the 4-point perspective. So now with this guide there, we created this long curved pan. And so after that, so I can play it back for you so that you can see what it looks like. And so these, so this guide there was created with, like I was saying, the 4-point perspective. And then when you're doing, so you're going to be able to use guides. You know, I can decide to add a few more details there. And same thing here. You know, it's going to be adjusting automatically, fitting with my guides. The other one that we created, beside the 4-point perspective, is we created a a fisheye guide as well. So if I go with the fisheye, and let's go back to the beginning of my scene. So now you're going to be able also to draw straight up fisheye backgrounds with your 5-point perspective. And then if you're doing VR, we also added the 4-point continuous perspective. So that will allow you to do backgrounds there if you're working on, like I was saying, on VR, and you need 360 backgrounds. So you have these guides available. So we really went full out with these guides. So you're really going to be able to create fantastic background layouts with these tools. I encourage you to try it. And if you try that on top of it with the pen settings that we just added and the new brushes, I think the creations will be awesome. And that's always the thing that is really fun for us, is when we put these tools out, it's to see what the community will be doing with it. And sometimes they're going to be creating ideas or using it ways that we didn't even imagine were possible. So I'm actually excited to see what people will do with these tools. And so after that, when we go into cutout animation, something that has been really exciting for all the rigging artists out there and the character designers is that we added the, let's bring in our character here. So I have a cutout character in here where what we did obviously is it's broken down into a few pieces, but we have a texture here. And I don't know if you remember in Harmony 16 or prior versions, when you're putting a deformer, let's go with an envelope deformer on this character here. So if I was to put a deformer around a texture, so let's do that very quickly here, and I start deforming the background, or not the background, the texture, then it will break the texture like this. So everybody who were designing characters who had textures on the shirts and all that, they had to always modify their design so that the textures were conveniently placed so that it would not have to be deformed too much. But now with Harmony 17, I think some of you have heard that we have the Freeform deformer. And so the Freeform deformer, if I add it here, is the new button here that you're going to find in your tool properties view. And those points are independent one from another. So it's a little bit different from the envelope deformer where there's a connection. Here, I can go ahead and just add a series of points. Actually, I could go ahead and add as many as I want, and they are independent one from another. But the exciting part about this is that now I'm actually able to deform that texture. And so I can make it bigger, smaller, bring it in, but I can also even zoom in. And so if I zoom in, I can even rotate that texture. Actually, it's been working really well. I tested it out on a few different rigs, and I've been very excited with the result. So I'm just going to quickly cut it in to show you what it looks like once that's, just put that here like this. There you go. So now I can animate my character, animate the shape of the shirt with my envelope deformer as usual, but then my texture inside of the shirt, I'm able to adjust the stripes based on the shape of my character and animate it. And when I keyframe it, so let's say I come here and I do a motion, you're going to even be able to see the path of each individual point. So if I do the same here and there, so each point will have its own trajectory, and I can see the trajectory of all my selected points. So that's actually a super easy tool to use, but it's really useful. So if you're a rigging artist out there or wanted to play with textures, this is a fantastic tool to experiment with. And so after the Freeform deformer, the other thing that we did is that we did a lot of improvements on master controllers. So in the previous version, we already had a master controller toolbar, but now in 17, if you add it back to your interface, you'll see that there's a few extra buttons. So one of them is actually just the ability to, let's say I grab my character. So if you select the group of your character rig, the first button that you have there is the ability to see which master controllers are actually included in this character. So I could decide to quickly select my blinks. and display them. So one of the things you can see now is that we added labels. So when I check, if I go with master controllers, and so on my master controller, inside the master controller node, you have the ability to invert it, make it horizontal, have label, change color. So we made it really easy to customize the look and the label of a master controller in this version. So now I can easily know, like, okay, those are my blinks. This is the blink for the right eye and the front eye and all that. So you can adjust your master controls a lot easier without having to code or go in the script or do anything. So they became very scriptless in this version. And so the other thing that we did is, obviously we had already the really fun to use grid wizard, which allow us to do the head rotations. If I go down into my deformers, we have I have the head rotation here. So with the head rotation, I'm able to adjust the head position. But one of the things that was difficult for people is when they wanted to be able to do a head rotation, but have the character change expression. So let's say maybe from here, she was maybe neutral face or nonchalant, and then she's looking up very quickly, but she became surprised. And so people wanted to be able to change expression while using the head rotation. So one of the things that was created is the grid wizard, but also with what we call a slider, which became the stack master controller. So the stack master controller, if I show it to you, so it's in my group again. So the stack master controller allows me to do, again, that same thing where I have the head rotation, but also we have a slider on the side here that will allow me to change between the expressions. And so let's say she's neutral, she's happy, she's a little bit surprised. So right now my animation is mainly on my mouth, but I could have the eyes changing along, the head shape, whatever you want in your poses, and then have the character change expression using the slider. So now you have the ability to use many head poses. So for example, here we had the neutral head rotation, have another section, which is the happy head rotation, and maybe more of a surprise head rotation here. And so now I'm able to grab these three sets of head rotations and assign them in my to my master controller, and with the slider, I'm able to change them. So it's very similar to the grid wizard. The only thing is when it asks me, or when I create a new grid, I have the ability to choose how many different expressions I want to put in. And so you can the same way assign your different your different expressions, and then you're going to be able to have a master controller and have a stack to change the expression of the character while you're changing the head position. So that makes it, again, super convenient to build your rig, expose all your poses you want for your character, different expressions. You can have 1, 2, 3, but you can have like maybe 15 expressions if you want in your master controller, and really have the ability to do your head rotation as well as changing expression. And so that became really easy in Harmony 17. The other thing that is very good as well is that you will have the unpack the unroll master controller. So if you have an existing master controller inside a character, but you want to do corrections in it or expose it and do modification, so you can use the unroll master controller to either rearrange some frames, apply some poses. I can even reopen the wizard and do modification to my existing master controllers. For some people who are not doing rigging here, that may be a little bit too advanced or over your head, so you don't have to use that if it's not something you want to use. But for people doing cutout animation and rigs and all that, so you can really go to town with that and really play with the master controllers and enhance your cutout characters to be able to use all these master controllers together and make the life of the animators a lot easier. And so you may notice as well that in the timeline, I have different colors on my different frames here. So this is actually so useful. any frame in the timeline can be now marked. It can be a group, it can be a peg, it can be a keyframe, anything that you want. You can simply right-click on a frame, and then from there, you're going to be able to do mark frame and choose a color. And so let's just go with yellow, for example, here. So I could use pink for all my key poses. I could use blue for some lip sync markers, or some purple for breakdown. So you could choose what the colors mean for you. And then you have the ability to set up a shortcut to jump from pink to pink to pink, or just from one frame marker to another frame marker. So you can choose to do that by going into your shortcuts and setting whichever key you would prefer to be able to flip between these frame markers. And to do that actually brings me to another little improvement that we did in 17, which I found fantastic, is that if you go into your preferences or keyboard shortcut, you can now see that the keyboard shortcuts have been separated from the preferences. So for 16s and before, they were combined together. Now you have straight up the access to keyboard shortcuts. And so if you click on it, you will also see that we have, and I'm so happy about that, the fact that you can create new shortcut flavors, but also save these shortcuts to export them and load them. So you could create or customize all your keyboard shortcut, save them to export them, and put them on your computer at home. So if you're working in studios or at home, you can do that. Or if you want to share your keyboard shortcut with somebody else so that they can use all your customized keyboard shortcuts. So you have a lot of flexibilities for shortcut sharing and backup here. And so if I search for my frame marker, so you can see here, you have the options to go to the next blue frame marker, or just skip to the next global frame marker and all that. So there's a lot of things that you can do here, set up keyboard shortcuts for your different colors to jump between your different markers. So the other thing that we did, since we did that with the keyboard shortcuts, is if I go in the preferences, I also have the ability to save my preferences, to export them, and the same thing, load them. So if you're using a specific set of keyboard preferences in the studio and you want to use them at home, you can use that. Or if you're a technical director and you want to set up preferences for the employees in the studio, you're going to be able to create a flavor of of preferences and load them on the different animators or rigging artist machine. But we also have included in the software, we have the rigging preferences, cutout animator preferences, and on. So when you get new rigging artists starting in the studio, or you're just brand new to Harmony and you want to do rigging, but you may not know what preferences should be enabled or not for best practices to do rigging, then you can just set up yourself into rigging mode and you have all the best preferences enabled for the task at hand. So depending what you're doing, you may just want to choose a flavor of preferences. And that made life really easier. So when people are starting in a studio or just starting at home, pick whichever preferences set will work to fit your task, and just you can run with it after that. So if we continue with rigging, a very simple thing that was added that made my life so much easier. So that's mainly for rigging artists and compositors. So I have long cables that will cross my entire node view. And so you know that you can already use the Alt key to connect or disconnect a node. So let's go here, and I can hold down my Option key or the Alt key to automatically connect a node on this cable. But I think the thing that was driving a lot of people like, it was the ability to do that with composite node. And so now when I move that composite around, I can hold on my Option key, and magic, I can now put that on a cable. So for people who have not used the node view a lot, it might be like, oh yeah, okay, that's nice. But for people who've been doing rigging, I think they will understand the feeling that I have when I'm able to connect a composite using the Alt key. That's actually a fantastic, simple improvement that made my life so easy. The other thing that you may have noticed is if I click on, I do my shortcut to add my composite, you can see that it's already in that trapezoid shape, which means the pass-through. So if I do, you can see that it's already set in the pass-through mode, which is very, very important when you're doing rigging. And so that allows me that when I add, every time I add a composite, I don't need to go change it to a composite mode. So that's because it is a preferences, which I believe is in the node view. And you can decide to have your, you can have, I'm sorry, I'm looking for it, but you can have that preference set up to be composite set as pass-through. And so that was just really fantastic. So if you enable your composite as pass-through preference, you're going to have them set up like this. But the other thing that we did also to make your life easy is if you select several nodes or select straight up all your nodes in your node view, when you're using this option here to set properties on many layers, if you click on it, you have the ability now to also set all the selected composite to pass-through. And so that will change all your composite to pass-through. So now you have a preferences to do it ahead of time, but you also have the options to do it after the fact. And that's just, it removes a lot of small manual operations. And I've tell you, in the past 2 months that I've been using that, it's just made my life so breezy. And so now I'm going to bring in, I'm just going to bring in a cutout animation scene so I can show you a few things for cutout animation. So bringing in from my library, I will be bringing in our little cutout character. So bringing this character. So now we have, again, that same little girl in a different style and that dog in a different style. So you can see the thematic here as we have this character and this little girl and her dog and all the different styles possible. So this character is also a cutout puppet. And one of the things that we've done when we do cutout animation and we use deformer, we will very often use this button here to show the deformer for the piece I'm animated or the deformer for the next piece that I'm animating. And so sometimes though, I want to be able to see all the other deformers that were there and I want to hide them automatically. So the first button that we have there works as usual, where it's gonna hide the deformer from the previous piece and show the deformer on the other one. But now you can see that there's one beside it, which allows me to go and just simply click on that button and it will keep the other deformers visible. So again, a small option that will make life of cutout animators a lot easier. So now you have these two options available there. The other thing that you can do as well is, especially I have this this character doing a run cycle. So what you can do if you want to set up the the run cycle across the screen, you can help yourself now with guides. So the guides are available in the camera view, and it will allow me to align or snap elements and that I move with the transform tool on the bounding box. So I can set up these guides like this, vertical or horizontal, and as soon as I click on it, they appear in the middle of my camera view, and I can move them. I can move them anywhere I want. I have a couple here, so I can adjust that. And if I grab, let's say my character BBB, so when I work with this character, I'm going to be able to move the character and then just snap it. The bounding box will snap to the guidelines, and so that will allow me to have maybe my character run across on a straight line. So it's very good points of reference. And if I don't need it anymore, I can just grab that line and just push it out of the camera view, and it's gone. So those are not, they don't work with the drawing tools yet. Maybe in the future, we don't know. But for now, they're working in the camera view with anything that you move with the transform tool. And so the other thing that we've done as well is we created new effects. So for if you're doing compositing, some things that you're going to do a lot are motion blurs, and you're going to also be doing some green screen, so color keying, taking colors out. So we improved a lot this effect for Harmony 17 as well. So let me bring in another scene. So in this scene, we have, again, another version of our girl running across. This one is a Japanese animation style. And what we've done on these characters, if I move into my render view, let's calculate that, is we added on these characters a motion blur. And this motion blur will work with anything. It will work on drawings, it will work on pegs, it will work even with camera motion. So this new effect is really what you would expect from a motion blur. So if I go inside the motion blur for my character, so we have obviously a few settings that are really good, like the duration, sample per frame, and your fall of rate. But again, the nice thing is that it's going to work with anything. But the option I think that is really interesting and useful here is that we have use camera motion. And the use camera motion, it allows us to do motion blurs that are based on the actual camera motion. So now if I enable the motion blur on my background, so for example here, if I go, sorry, I'm looking for my mode, here I have another motion blur on my background, but on this one, we enabled the use camera motion. So what this means, if I show you the scene, is that when I move here, I have a zoom in. So that means when I enable the use camera motion on my background, then I have a motion blur that is set up on my background elements, and they're all aligned with the camera motion, meaning that if I modify my camera motion, this motion blur will enable, it will update with the changes of the camera motion. So if I do a zoom out, the motion blur will change direction and all that. So you can easily put camera motion and motion blurs, and it's just make compositing life a lot easier when it comes to this blur. So again, if you're a compositing artist out there, I really suggest that you download the trial and you go try this motion blur, and I think you're going to see that that was a massive improvement from the legacy motion blur that was in Harmony 16 and previous version. Now, the other thing that we have for the compositing is that we created as well a RGB keyer. So for example, here I have a sequence to create a transition between my scene, my two scenes. So if I want to use this black artwork as a cut in and cut that in my scene as a transition, I need to take out the green, which I can do now with the RGB keyer, and it works really easily. So actually, I simply have to choose with the color picker what color I want to take out. So I can easily just go and pick the that green color, and then after that, the part that is really interesting though to make it nicer is that you have inside the black, you have this green that is in there as well, and it's always where it makes a difference between a good green screen and a crappy green screen key out. So we have the other color here where it will replace the color. So when it finds that green color inside the rest of the image, you can say replace that color with a different one. Very often this option is a black color. So you could choose a different color. So maybe I want to go with red, and it's going to replace the color it's going to find in there with a red. But you have the ability to choose what color you want to replace this in, and it really makes a big difference in the quality of a green screen. So you want to find the new option is called the RGB difference keyer. So again, for compositors, I would say give it a shot because it's really a good feature, a good option, and it's really what you would expect from an RGB keyer. So I had a lot of I was really happy when I used that. And so the last function that we added that is also so simple but so useful is that now when you export options and movies from Harmony, you have now a new option, which I think a lot of people were excited about, is that you can now export as MP4. So in Windows, you can do movie in the WMV, but now you also have MP4s. And that's something that people were asking a lot as well. So that has been put in there as well. So all these features I found are really fantastic, and they made my life easier. And that's what I'm really excited about. So yes, there's a lot of big, great features. There are new options that really allow you to do a lot more new things. But for your existing pipelines, there's also all these little options, these little functions that you're gonna, when you try it, you're gonna see that it makes your life so much easier. For me, I think I was really excited about the all composite and the separated, the ability to export my shortcuts and all that. So you will, I'm sure, find something in Harmony 17 that will really make your life easier and that you will really appreciate. And I think now we have a few minutes left to be able to answer some questions. Do we have any questions in the pipeline that I could answer?
One question we have is, do the improvements to Harmony 17's drawing engine also apply to bitmap brushes?
That's actually a very good question. Yes, so all the tools that I showed you, for the stabilization, the pen tilt and all that, you will be able to use that on the brush tool that is either in vector or in bitmap, so meaning the texture vector brushes. You will also be able to use it with the pencil tool, and you will be able to use it with drawing tools that are on pure bitmap layers as well. So all the drawing tools will benefit from these new improvements. And which makes me think as well, there's something that is not an option that is visible in the interface, but one of the big improvements that we've done as well is the ability to, let me just turn off the guide, is the ability that when you draw really, really quickly, in previous version, you would sometimes have like straight lines happening like that. Like the refresh rate on the Wacom tablet was not necessarily what people were expecting. And so now that has been completely fixed or improved, so that if you draw really, really quickly, again, pencil tool, bitmap tools, vector tools, you will have a really good refresh rate and your line will be really smooth, even if you draw really, really fast.
Another question that we have from the audience is, which editions of Harmony include the new stabilizers for drawing with the pencil or paintbrush tools?
So that has been added to all 3 editions. So if you're using Advanced, Essentials, and Premium, you're going to be able to use this new pen toolbar in all 3 editions.
Another question in the chat that appeared is, can the preview cache be applied to every element in a scene? And can the preview caches be applied to 3D models imported into Harmony?
So that's also a very good question. So when, and I guess I moved on very quickly over the cache. Now you have also something that I forgot to mention, thank you about this question, is that when you enable the cache on a composite, so on a composite node at the top, you have the option to cache it. So anything connected in this composite will be put in cache. So it's actually taking the OpenGL image of whatever is connected in it, and we'll turn it into a cache option. And so if we're looking at the cache option, is that it's going to make a quick render of the OpenGL view, and it will allow you to, so now see if I'm caching it. I see here it has been cached, so you can see that my cursor has been has changed, showing me that this image has been cached from OpenGL. So it can be on one composite, or you can put it on your final composite in your scene to be able to apply to all the elements in your scene. So you can really choose what you want, either one specific composite inside of your node view or one at the very bottom. And then you can also, I did not personally test it myself with 3D objects, but my understanding is also that it will be cached as well for 3D objects. But what we could do as well, and just confirm that with our R&D team, and then get back, just answer that question after the fact, just to make sure I'm saying the pure truth.
When should animators consider using the Freeform deformer instead of the envelope deformer?
Well, that's a good question. Yes, so the Freeform deformer is not replacing the envelope deformer. They both have their specific use. The envelope deformer, you're going to set it up around your drawing with the Bezier handle. So when you have a flat color, or you really want to control the shape, for example, if you have a rotating character and you want to give the head shape either a face shape or a side shape or the body of a front shape or side shape, you want to make sure that you use the envelope deformer around it. The freeform deformer, I really use it for textures that are invert cut into something, because you don't have, they're all independent points that allow you a lot of flexibility, but you don't have the Bezier handle to control exactly the contour as you would want it, the way the envelope deformer does.
Can the RBG difference keyword be used to composite video footage into animated scenes?
Yes, actually, the sequence that I showed here is a video sequence that we imported in the software. So that's actually what it is. So it could be live action, it could be illustrated or other animations or render of 3D animations. You can bring it in and key out any colors that you want. So definitely live action movie clip can be imported and use that option.
Can I export preferences to other installations of Harmony?
Yes, absolutely. So when you do in the, if you go back to your preferences, so when you do the save will actually generate a file that you can save on your desktop and import in other Harmony instance. For example, if you have a set of premium short preferences, I would not recommend that importing on other editions, like let's say from premium to advanced and so on. I would make sure that your preferences are for the same Harmony edition.
The last question we'll take today is it possible to alter the pen pressure after drawing?
So the pen pressure after you draw is generally, you will do that with the pencil tool, and then you can do that with pencil stencils. And then, so if I work with my pencil tool, you're going to be able to, after you drew it, you're going to be able to, oh, I should remove the cache from my composite. So after you've done that, you're going to be able to change the pressure sensitivity, and so you can change the pressure sensitivity here and with the select tool, or you could apply a different pencil thickness based on what's available in your settings there.